Hi everyone, I'm Shani DeWent, Marketing Manager at Equal Justice Works, and today we'll be talking to Lauren Blodgett, 2016 Equal Justice Works Fellow. We are here to talk about how an Equal Justice Works Fellowship launched Lauren's career and to inspire other public interest-minded law students to do the same. Thank you so much, Lauren, for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I light up at any opportunity to speak about Equal Justice Works because it had such an impact on my life and my career. So I'm forever grateful and happy to do anything I can to help.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into it. Big question. Why public service? What connects you to this type of work?
Hmm. That is a great question, big question. For me, public service, it boils down to the question of like, what impact do you want to have on the world? What's the legacy you want to leave? And I think that can look very different for lots of different people within public service. There's so many ways that you can go. And for me, it was just about giving back and serving in a way that I felt connected to. So everything that I'm doing, I feel like it's helping to strengthen my own community and my own roots and the things that I stand for and really value and cherish. And that's kind of been also reflected in how I was raised, and my family is full of teachers and people who've worked in the government, and um, I've been able to see that there are lots of options within public service, and that it's really just about finding the one that fits you and lights you up. So that for me looked like a lot of experimenting. Like in law school, I was like the clinic rat, basically. They were like, okay, you're taking all the clinics. And it was just, I had this passion for public service, but it was finding the right fit, like I said. So I did all the clinics, and even before law school, I was doing human rights research and I had worked in local government. So I kind of have had this whole public service journey since I was a teenager. And there's kind of no harm in experimenting because at the end of the day, if you're within public service, hopefully you're making an impact. But the experimenting for me was just finding what can I see myself doing long term.
And while you were experimenting, what led you to an Equal Justice Works Fellowship?
Hmm. So it was during my 3L of law school, and I took the time to just really sit down and ask myself that question: what is the impact? And it can't be just, oh, I want to like do good in the world. Okay, that's not going to really lead you anywhere. So really to the granular detail of like, okay, do I want to be doing research behind a desk? Do I want to be meeting with one-on-one with people? And I knew that I wanted to, after law school, like jump right into it. And for me, it was doing direct service work, and Equal Justice Works, that the fellowship allows you to really dive in right from law school. And we can talk about the pros and cons of that, pretty much all pros, right? But um, it I was just like ready. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get my degree, and then how soon can I get into a courtroom? How soon can I have my own client caseload? And I just loved that it gave you the kind of freedom and independence to do that and to create a project that you're passionate about. And that was the most exciting piece to me. It was like, not only can I jump in right away, but also I get to create and design this project that feels really personal and meaningful to me. And I can talk a little bit about what my project was, if that's helpful. Okay. So I ended up working at a nonprofit called the Safe Passage Project in New York City.
How did you find Safe Passage project. So of course, with
Yeah,
creating this project, you have to collaborate with a host organization to submit the application. So
right.
how did you find that?
So I spent so much time on the front end, really first designing the project, um, and in detail, but like soft detail. So I knew what I wanted it to be, but was still open. I had some flexibility because you are partnering with a nonprofit, right? So you can't just walk in and be like, this is my project, everyone follow along. It's a partnership and it's a collaboration. So first, I got super clear about what type of work I wanted to do. And for me, I wanted it to be a combination of legal advocacy and community building for young immigrant women who are survivors of gender-based violence. And so that is already pretty specific, but I was open to what that could look like within an organization. And I would just say on the project development side, for me, it was thinking through what in law school is the class or the even just the law that really shakes you up the most. And for me, it was learning that immigrants don't have the right to free legal representation in their immigration cases. So for me, that was like, ooh, yeah, that's the that's the cause I want to fight for. And then on the personal level, it was a combination of my own personal history and trauma, and then also where my family roots are, that made me really want to work with immigrant communities specifically and with girls specifically. My family, my mother's family is from Portugal, and they all immigrated to Boston, and they had their own community center that they helped build from the ground up, and they would meet and share meals and help each other do taxes and learn English together. So I kind of grew up with that narrative of knowing, okay, legal representation is super important, but so is this other piece, and that the power of having both of them together. So I got really specific and just really dreamt big about what I wanted to do with my law degree, which was tough because a lot of people in 3L are thinking, okay, like what's practical? What's like the stepping stone I can take for the career? And for me, I was like, no, this is my life. Like, what do I want to do with it? And then looking for a partner organization, I did the same thing. I really did a ton of research on what are some organizations I could partner with. Do I want to be in a big nonprofit or a tiny nonprofit? Do I want to be with one that's a startup or one that's been around forever? And I just started, it almost felt like speed dating. I was having all of these video interviews. This was pre quarantine and COVID, but it was similar in the sense that I was just like having, it wasn't Zoom, it was Skype, I think, back then. I'm so old, I used to use Skype. uh, but it was just like Skype interview after Skype interview with different host organizations because I was in Thailand for my 2L summer, so I had to do it that way. And those Skype interviews, Skype speed dating, it was really a two-way street. So it was seeing, okay, does this host organization seem like it could be a fit for the project I have in mind? But then also they're thinking, okay, is this someone that we'd want to bring onto our team and really invest our time and energy into? So I had probably 20 of those, and then I spoke with the founder of the Safe Passage Project, Lenny Benson, and it was like love at first sight. You know, it was like our energies matched and our vision matched, and I was able to come to her and say, this is my idea, but then also, what do you need? What would be helpful for you? Is there a way that we can make this project proposal actually fit for everyone and everyone wins? So that initial connection. And then, I mean, she ended up being one of my biggest mentors, and we still keep in touch all the time. And she's on the advisory board for the nonprofit that I started. So that partnership has been super strong, not just for purposes of the Equal Justice Works Fellowship, but for the rest of my career. So I think it's really worth putting in that time to really find a host organization that you, I don't want to say you have to love them because you might not know them yet, but that you just feel like, okay, I could see myself there for 2 years, and it seems like we have a similar vision and similar purpose.
Yeah. Let's pivot to another partnership. Um, and it's your sponsor partnership, basically. Your sponsors work with you for pro bono cases or even helping you with advice or things like that. How are your sponsors able to help propel your fellowship to another level?
So I loved my sponsor relationship because it really felt like a partnership and sometimes even a friendship. Like we would go get tacos and go to lunch together and just share stories and share advice. And it was not as kind of transactional as maybe I thought it would be going in. And it was just really a pretty deep and authentic connection. And they helped in so many ways. They invited me to come speak at one of their conferences. It was like my first month on the job, and they asked me to come speak at one of their offsite trainings where they had their legal department from all over the world. So I think it was like over 1,000 people in the room. And they were like, share about your project. And I'm like, okay, I guess this is happening. So, but from that kind of lit the match, because then the people on their team really understood, okay, this is what the project is about, this is how we can help. So that, and they invited me back to speak in smaller gatherings as well. And through just those interactions, we were able to co-create really what that relationship should look like. And it was really a range. So we had some kind of standard programs that they would be involved in, like they would help do country conditions research for my asylum cases. But then also, if there was someone within that firm or that company that was really interested on taking it a step further, then they would come on and actually do a full legal case with me. So it really varied in kind of the extent that they wanted to be involved, which was really great for everybody because it was like very flexible. And I think a key in that relationship was just communication and checking in, um, and really communicating, not just like be a good communicator, but really showing them this is the impact that you're allowing me to have. So when I would win an asylum case, I would shoot them an email and be like, hey, we just won this asylum case for this 6-year-old, and now she gets to have this whole life in this country, and she gets to go to school here and build a future here. So I think that sharing the stories and the victories as well was a huge piece that was important for like keeping them engaged, keeping me engaged, and keeping that relationship strong. And even to this day, I'm no longer in my fellowship, but we keep in touch. We still will get lunch or go get coffee, and they actually helped me launch the nonprofit, the Brave House. They sponsored my 501c3 application. So it was really this awesome kind of transition from the fellowship to post fellowship.
Is there one moment or one takeaway from your fellowship that you can share with us?
God, there's so many. Those 2 years felt like 20 years, honestly. I think it was 2 years that I've experienced the most growth in my life, personally and professionally. Like I mentioned earlier, you dive right in. And that's the beauty of the fellowship, is that it allows you to just hit the ground running and really start making the impact that you want to make. But with that impact comes responsibility. So within 2 weeks of starting at the Safe Passage Project, I was in court in front of a judge getting screamed at. And that was rough, but that also is what allowed me to grow and become a better advocate and a better attorney. So it forced me to adapt and to learn those lessons and learn them fast. And I think at the end of the day, it's easy, even though it's uncomfortable in the moment, it's easy to learn those lessons because you have the why in the back of your mind of why you're doing it. So when a judge is screaming at you in Queen's Family Court, and actually I was ejected from the courtroom the first time that I appeared on my own. It was wild. Um, it was wild. Sometimes these courts are like the Wild West, I swear to God. But I'll always know that, okay, that happened and I survived and my clients survived, and all right, we're good. So actually, if I can handle that, I can pretty much handle anything. So that's one of those moments that I think of, and that was again within the first month or two of me starting at the job. And it's those 2 years were kind of just a culmination of lots of experiences like that, of just failing, but failing fast and learning fast and picking yourself up and being resilient. So it's where I really gained all of these skills of learning how to speak in court, learning how to interview a client in a trauma-informed way, learning how to develop a plan, like a strategy for working with clients, but also working with your sponsors and keeping track of a lot of different things. And so many of these skills I found have been transferable and so useful for the rest of my career. So it was really like boot camp almost, in a way. And I don't say that to, I don't want to scare anyone. But it's like, if you say you want to have an impact, like, this is how you do it.
And you've taken those skills, and I assume they're transferable skills, because now, as you alluded to, are the founder of your own nonprofit, the Brave House. How, and you touched on it already, but how, as you stepped into that role, how was an Equal Justice Works Fellowship helpful to you as you now step into like your new leadership role, really?
Well, I think that, and this is really only in retrospect, but now I view my Equal Justice Works Fellowship as almost the incubator for the nonprofit that I now started, because it's exactly an extension of what my project was. My project was direct legal services for immigrant young women and girls who are survivors of abuse, and then this girls empowerment group that we started, Las Mariposas, where we would have events where we would do like soccer and hip hop dance class and self-defense. And I was just hungry for more of it. And I wanted to actually create a structured program where, like, this is what we do, and not like this is just Lauren's project, but this is an organization that does this in a very scalable and systematic way. And so the Equal Justice Works Fellowship allowed me to kind of try it out and play with it and see what works and what doesn't. And it also gave me the time to really listen to my clients and what they were asking for. Because at the end of the day, you can have a million amazing magical ideas, but it really matters what the community that you're working with and that you're supporting, what they want and what they think. And so throughout my time at Safe Passage Project as an Equal Justice Works Fellow, I was just having these meetings with my clients, and they would tell me the same thing over and over again of the types of services and community that they were looking for. And it was often that I was maybe one of the only ears that they had listening to them because they are unaccompanied minors. So I'm like, okay, we're going to work on your asylum case today. And they're like, okay, but first, how do I get health insurance? And can you talk to my guidance counselor for me? And do you think this boy has a crush on me? And how do I make friends? And I'm bored on Saturdays. What should I do? And then, like, the hour would be over and we hadn't even worked on their legal case. So that's through all those conversations, I was like, okay, wouldn't it be great if we had a nonprofit that did the legal advocacy? Because that's still so important, but also had this more holistic and community driven approach. And that's exactly what the Brave House does. And I wouldn't have been able to learn that and also try out a few different models of it without having had the Equal Justice Works Fellowship first. So it was like a crucial, necessary step in order that allowed me to launch the nonprofit. And all of those skills, like being a leader, that's really what you're doing when you're developing a project. It's your project. The nonprofit is there to support you, and they're, of course, like grateful that you're doing that work, and they're supportive of you, and they're going to be there to supervise you. But at the end of the day, it's your vision, it's your project, it's your passion. So you have to learn how to hone in on that. And like, for me, it was finding a way to take my passion, because I'm like Energizer Bunny and like I'm so passionate, and but at the same time it's like you need, okay, a business plan, and like you got to use some spreadsheets and you got to be organized. So it's having that independence but also responsibility throughout the fellowship helped me now be able to execute on my vision and my passion.
And to kind of end this, not on like a bad note or anything, but we're living in unprecedented times. Is there any advice that you would give to law students who are preparing to enter the public interest workforce?
Yes. So one thing that just came up for me actually from the last question, but it also is related to this, is about like learning from each other and leaning on your peers. And something that really helped me throughout my fellowship experience was the annual conference that you all host in October, I believe, of every year. And there were so many workshops that I took that actually transformed the way I would think about a certain topic. I learned how to make a budget in a workshop at Equal Justice Works fellowship at the conference. I can't remember the name of the conference.
Leadership development training.
Yes, I know it LDT, but I couldn't remember. Um, I mean, I actually have it on my desk. Like I got a piece of paper at that training that it's like all torn now because I look at it so much. But those train kind of workshops, seminars, trainings, but also the people I met, the other fellows I met at those conferences, I still keep in touch with them, and we still bounce ideas off each other, even if they're not doing immigration work. Someone that I became really close with was doing elder law, and we just keep in touch and bounce ideas off each other. So I would say that that's a way that the fellowship greatly impacted me and helped me prepare me for the future. But then also it's a lesson for what to do in these uncertain times. It's knowing that there are people around you who want to support you and want to help you, and you're not doing it alone. You're not forging the path alone, even though I feel like I've talked a lot about like independence and being a self-starter and a leader. That doesn't mean that you're doing that in a vacuum or without anyone's help. So I think it's important to have those conversations. And also I think these uncertain times really force you to slow down and really reflect on what impact do I want to have. And not like, again, I'm trying to put myself in the 3L mind, because I just remember the pressure that we all felt to just kind of like have a plan and set yourself up for the next 10 years. And for some people that works and that's what they need, and that's like no judgment on that part. But also, you don't have to think that way. You can really dream big. And I encourage you and invite you to be like, in an ideal world where like money is no object, and all of these resources, I'll find a way to get them. What is the one thing that I could get out of bed every morning and be like, full body, yes, this is what I get to do. Not like, this is the work I have to do, this is the work I get to do. So I think use this time, use this pause as a way to get creative and really ask yourself, you're at a juncture where there's a lot of unknown, but also there's a lot of opportunity. And there's a lot of people who need help. And there's a lot of ways that you can help them. So thinking through what drives you, but then also what are your very unique skills? Because as a 3L now, you have that toolbox. You have very unique and rare and needed skills right now, that the world needs, even though it might be daunting to think you're entering this workforce and it's so competitive. That's true, but also you have these rare skills, and don't forget that. And don't think just because you're not admitted to the bar yet, right, that you don't have something to offer, because you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that advice, and thank you for joining us today and having this conversation.
Of course. I like I said, I am always happy to talk to anyone from Equal Justice Works. I get so excited when law students reach out to me to hear about my experience and get kind of tips and advice for moving forward, because it's something that I just really believe in. I think this program is so powerful and it's changed my life, and I think it has the potential to really change a lot of people's lives. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to hang out and share a little bit today.